Okay, so hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar on the benefits and applications of Bloom for turfgrass, and more specifically for golf turf. I'm April Thompson, Senior Director for Bloom, and we are very excited to have all of you joining. As I mentioned, I'm also joined by Victoria Aline, who is Bloom Sales Manager and who will be helping facilitate the chat here. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers. In order of in the order they will be presenting, we will start with James Fatui, who is a wastewater engineer with DC Water and manages the Bloom operations at Blue Plains. As program manager for biosolids operations, James ensures that all DC Water and contractual biosolids operations and services at Blue Plains follow the internal biosolids management plan and system, as well as federal, state, and local regulatory permits and requirements. He also oversees blending and co-digestion operations, including managing the activities of some 50 contractor drivers, crane operations, and dispatchers. James holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of British Columbia and worked for Blue Tech Research and Engineers Without Borders before joining DC Water. Then we will be hearing from Jeff Michel, who is the Vice President of M&M Consulting, Inc., based in Warrenton, Virginia. Jeff received his BS in agronomy from Penn State University in 1984. After working for 20 years in the golf course industry, primarily in a superintendent capacity, Jeff joined the firm of M&M Consulting in 2004. M&M Consulting provides agronomic and environmental services to the golf, equine, agricultural, and horticultural industries throughout the Mid-Atlantic and Carolinas. Currently, M&M Consulting services over 120 golf courses nationwide. So we're excited to have his expertise. Lastly, but not least, we will hear from Ben Ellis, who has worked in the golf course industry for over 20 years, many being a golf course superintendent in the Southern Maryland and Northern Virginia areas. He completed his turfgrass management certificate from Penn State University, is a past president of the Maryland Turfgrass Council, is the author of The First 100 Days Becoming a Golf Course Superintendent and Living to Tell the Story. That's one I'd like to read. And currently holds the golf course superintendent's position at Andrews Air Force Base Golf Course. Welcome to all of our speakers and welcome to all of you. And with that, I will turn it over to James.
All right, thanks for that introduction, April. Okay, can you see those slides there?
Yep, we can see it.
Are the notes included there? Sorry, or is it just the slide deck?
Just the slides.
Perfect. Okay, great. Wouldn't want to show how the sausage is made. Thanks, everybody. My name is James Fatui, like April mentioned, program manager here at Blue Plains and oversee the operations for the Bloom program. Today, I'm going to discuss what the product is and the places that we use it, in particular, its utilization in turf applications. Jeff and Ben are going to go in more specifics on golf courses, and I'm going to summarize some of the research we've done on how Bloom can be used with turf and all the benefits therein. So, where's Bloom from? Bloom is produced at the Blue Plains Advanced Wastewater Treatment Plant here in the district. We collect wastewater from all over the district, including PG, Montgomery County, as far as Loudoun County, and treat it here at Blue Plains. And to put that in perspective, 370 million gallons a day is about like filling up RFK Stadium once a day, every single day. So we get a lot of water coming through here, and as a consequence, we get a lot of solids. One nice thing about the region is there's very little industry, so that enables us to produce a very high quality biosolid product. part of the biosolid product that we have is a discretionary project completed around 10 years ago, where we upgraded our existing lime stabilization system to what's called a Canby thermal hydrolysis anaerobic digester. So basically, taking the sludge, pressure cooking it, and then we're putting it through a digester stabilization to get a nice, stable, and sterile product. The benefit of this project was we reduced the volume, and we also produced a nice, low-odor material, which enabled us to market it. Some of the key benefits there is we were able to make this high-quality product and generate electricity and cut greenhouse gas emissions. So it had a lot of benefits to the overall program. So let's get to what we're talking about today, Bloom. Bloom is a organic amendment that is very high in nitrogen and phosphorus. So you can think of it relatively close to a compost, but it has a much higher nutrient profile in addition to a lot of micronutrients. So again, you get the organic matter, you get the organic nutrients, and you get some additional benefits like drought resistance and improvements in hydraulic conductivity from application. So it's a great amendment to add to poor soils that don't have a lot of organic matter or nutrients. And for what we're talking about today, the organic nitrogen is very critical for turf applications. So when it comes to turf, we see a lot of really great growth from the Bloom material. We hear this comment a lot from customers that one of the negatives of using Bloom is you got to mow a lot more. So you see a lot of great above ground biomass growth. And some of the research we looked at hydraulic conductivity improvements because you get more organic matter, you get more aggregation. But really it's that slow release nitrogen instead of like a conventional fertilizer where you're putting it down and you have a few rains and it generally washes through the soil. You're slowly getting that nitrogen to be released over the season, and you might even get a little residual in following seasons. And so that has cascading benefits for your soil and for the growth of the turf. So some of the studies that we looked at to determine impacts of Bloom on turf, one was conducted with the University of Maryland and the State Highway Authority. And we took some piece of degraded ground that was near their headquarters or near one of their offices in Howard County, and broke it up into several different plots. And we applied our main product, which is the Bloom cake, and then our blends, which is generally used for landscaping and turf applications, like you'll see at the golf courses, as well as we looked at deer compost and conventional fertilizer. The goal was to try and understand what are the different soil conditions that are improved, and how do we see growth change over seasons in this degraded landscape? Again, you can see it's a very sandy soil, very low nutrient profile, almost no organic matter. So we're starting from a pretty bare soil, almost like bare earth here. So what do we see? You'll see we saw a lot of improvements in above ground biomass, both in the first and the second growing season. So that first product is our Bloom cake, and then our Bloom sandy mix, and our Bloom mulch mix. Those are some great results. You can see that in comparison to the conventional fertilizer, which shows a lot less biomass growth. And again, you can really, even though we applied this at a same nutrient application rate based on a nutrient management plan, because it's a slow release nitrogen versus a quickly mineralizable one, you see a lot more benefits from the products. And then those blends, again, you're mixing it with organic sources. What we currently mix it with is a mulch fine. And so, you're just adding more organic matter and slowing down the nitrogen release even more there. So has a lot of knockdown benefits. Hydraulic conductivity saw a lot of great improvements as well, which makes sense. If you're getting more biomass growth and more root growth, you're getting more soil porosity, and you're adding organic matter, you're going to get better aggregation. And so again, that was kind of confirmed, and definitely saw some nice things, especially with the Bloom sand mix, which makes sense if you're dealing with, like we have often here in Maryland and in the district, Virginia, you have a lot of compacted, heavy clay soil, so adding sand can be a great benefit. Some of the applications that we've used it on, again, when we're talking about using it on turf, we're generally talking about those blended products. So we're usually top dressing with either the sand blend or the mulch blend, and based on it, again, this is based on your nutrient management plan or how degraded the soil is, but you're usually adding about a quarter, half inch. You can add a bit more if you're incorporating it. Again, if you're really trying to boost the soil's nutrient profile, you can definitely add it in. And so we've done several different uses. We've had a lot of different customers using our material. One particular project we've seen a lot of success with is with Urban Zinc. This is Crofton High School. Worked on this back in 2019. And the goal of this was to basically completely redo the landscaping at this high school. So you can see in this photo, you got a football field and tennis courts and a big grassy field. And essentially, they took dirt from the site, brought our material in, our cake material, mixed it into the soil, and reapplied it. Again, so they did that incorporation into the soil and saw a lot of great results. And as a consequence, Urban Zinc uses us on almost a dozen projects at this point and has spec'd us into several different schools because they saw such great results and were relatively affordable amendment as well. So great results there. This is another project. This is in the district, South Capitol Bridge project. They used it primarily on landscaping on the sides of the highway, as well as some gardens. And we did something very similar. They had soil from the site or soil they were bringing in that was maybe not quite up to spec. We would drive our cake down there, they'd mix it in, and then apply it to grade, and then seed it. And again, saw some really nice results there. We've done that here on site, and once you get your turf established, at least from what I've seen here at Blue Plains where we've used it, it doesn't seem like you need to do a lot of amending once you get that establishment. So it's a great long-term foundation. For another project, one of our first, is on Route 5, Waldorf. Similar project. They were spending a lot of money on topsoil, and we came up with a great idea about taking their soil from the site, mixing it with the material, and a few different amendments to try and get it up to state highway specification. And we saw a lot of great results there along several miles of highway. So again, a lot of good turfgrass projects demonstrating bloom can be really, really helpful. This is in DC. These previous projects were all incorporation. This one was a top dressing, which is what most of our landscaping customers are doing and our golf course customers. So we took our sand blend and raked it over a ball field here that hadn't seen a lot of amendments, was very, very compacted. And after about a month, we saw a lot of great growth. This one was kind of funny because it was right before the pandemic started. We had about 50 people from the local community come out and help us rake the material. So our last public events. But again, we really saw a lot of great results there from the application. And I don't know why that photo didn't load, but there was a great in this month's newsletter. We had a great success story at a landscaping site in Leesburg. Again, using mulch blend and top dressing. So again, our product works really great with turf, and the following presenters are going to talk about, specifically in the golf context, and try to meet those very specific USGA specs. But very nice product for amending your soil, and yeah, we've seen a lot of great success there. So thanks everybody, and that's all for me.
Awesome.
Thanks, James. Right, you're up, Jeff.
All right, I'm trying to share my window and I'm stuck in that no man's land we were last time. All right, come on. Don't be ornery there. Oh, it keeps. Ha. So did it share now?
It did, yep. You want to make it full screen, we'll be good to go.
All right, hold on here. Working?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Well, welcome everybody, and thanks for taking time out of your day to listen to us chat about the opportunities with Bloom. And I will concur with James. Seen a lot of positive uses for it in various aspects. And what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to talk about 3 applications for Bloom in turf, whether it's sports turf, home turf, golf turf is my specialty. But I'm going to talk about, we have a situation in golf, what I call post-construction trauma. We'll talk about that. And then, in established areas, parks, rec areas, golf courses, soccer fields, you got your turf in challenged areas. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about media development. What I mean by that is, typically in golf and some sports turf, we'll create a sandy media to be used for a putting green or a golf tee or a soccer pitch or something like that. And I'm going to discuss some ideas and opportunities that I see for Bloom in that arena. So post-construction trauma, you can see here, we got a golf course that's doing some work around a putting green, and they've either reshaped or disturbed this soil. And no matter what you do, when you're redesigning a hole or an area, you alter the soil structure. You can't avoid it, because essentially this is what it looks like. Okay. If you look in this picture, you got a pickup truck parked on the soil, a bobcat, a roller, another bobcat, a soil conditioner. Yeah, I mean, it's all in a tight area. You stripped everything off, you've recontoured or reshaped. Now you're trying to get it smooth and level. So typically you can sod most of these soil areas. Well, soil structure's been pretty well compromised. And when I see activity like this picture, this is me. Okay. I'm like, oh, good grief. We've gone ahead and, kind of really created a problem for us. And what typically happens is they get the soil lightly raked out and they lay the sod on it. And sometimes, the sod will catch and do okay. Other times it'll really struggle. So this is what happens. You can see how smooth and somewhat compacted a lot of this area is. And what my suggestion is, either using the woody blend, if it's a larger flat area, spreading that out in like a 1/4 inch increment, or if you're concerned about stability, I could use the sandy blend. Either one, depending on what works best in the situation, to layer a piece of porous airspace on top of that compacted soil. That way, when we put our sod down, we have a binding agent between the soil that's been worked and disturbed and has its structure reconstituted, and the sod that we're putting on. We get that little pocket of good biology, good pore space. I think we get better establishment, and we can prevent a lot of problems from developing 3 to 6 months down the road. Water infiltration is improved. You got a little band of material there to help you out in that aspect. And then what solves the problem in most cases in those areas is actually growing the roots of the turf. The turf roots can penetrate, they punch their way through, they die, they leave a pore space, more roots can follow. And it's kind of like your own biological self-aerification. If we can grow healthy turf, we can get these areas to perform well. And I think Bloom's a key ingredient to that. So you can spread it with a big spreader in some areas. You can get little spreaders that can get tight into some of those areas around slopes and tees. And, if you can do it, on this edge of this photo, we incorporated some organics in there, and you end up with a pretty nice product that is sustainable. All right. So anytime you have a facility, whether it's a golf course, park, like I said, soccer pitches, etc., there are sites that are traffic challenged, shade challenged, and I think that Bloom Woody Blend and the Sandy Blend can help you there. And here's a situation on a golf course where you've got tree competition, you got a cart path, you got mower skid around the turn because we're going too fast. And you can see that we've pretty much chewed up any available grass in there. So that's the same spot treated with the Bloom Woody Blend at about a 1/2 inch application rate and a seeded blend of tall fescue and Kentucky bluegrass in there. Now you can still see we got a little bit of tracking from the mowers. We need to slow down, but we've done a pretty good job of just reestablishing grass in these challenged areas just by surface top dressing Bloom and planting into it. And quite honestly, it doesn't get much simpler than that. Not another, you can do this in a lot of areas. Like I said, I think like soccer pitch goal mouths tend to get hammered pretty good. A light dressing in there and either encouraging the Bermuda grass sprigs that you have to push in, or overseeding with a ryegrass or a blend of desirable turf just to keep that stuff moving along. Works well. Okay. Third option, as I said, media development. We take most construction sites use peat moss blended with sand to add organics, nutrient holding capacity, and modify water holding properties in golf. Most of the peat we import from Canada. It's a long ride. It's gotten expensive. COVID screwed up the supply chain. Lots of challenges with it. But peat is a convenient organic source that was, fairly readily available. But all we really need is a good organic source to blend into a high quality sand for the purpose of building a golf green. So what I did, I've been looking at blending the Bloom cake in a 2 to 3% by volume, and I can get physical properties of the media to mimic a blend that has 10% by volume of peat in its properties. The water behavior properties are not mirror images, but they're very close as compared to peat. And the Bloom also gives me that basic nutrition that James was talking about with the nitrogen and phosphorus and some minor elements in there. So what happens is I have a product that is more nutritious and quite frankly, should be less expensive to produce than the old mindset of just a sand peat blend. And, it works pretty well. Okay. Their establishment process tends to be a little quicker because of the nutrient loading capacity of the Bloom. Now, look, we add additional nutrition, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't take as much as the conventional 90-10 peat. And I think its rate of establishment is slightly superior, because what happens is most guys push a little harder with the fertility program on a 90-10 peat than they do with a biosolid blend like a Bloom. So they try to mimic the grow in the same. But in my observation, the bloom works quicker and requires less supportive inputs to get where you need to be. So this one was, I don't know, maybe about 75 days after establishment. Those root mass in there bending like a fishing pole. That thing's probably 8 inches deep. You know, hard to argue with, you know, that kind of establishment success over a relatively short period of time. Now, you know, obviously weather plays a role, optimal conditions, and quite frankly, good management by the individual in charge of growing them in. So, you know, the bloom products, one thing I've noticed, good slow feed. I've seen no burn activity applying the top dressing sandy material, the woody material. I haven't seen a deleterious negative effects of the product being applied. It's not green or raw. It's well processed. Leaching, since it's got a carbon source with it, it's going to hold its nutrients better. And I would consider the leaching potential slow. I don't notice any odor, but quite frankly, don't trust my olfactory senses to much of anything. But I don't smell anything when it's being used in pretty significant quantities. And this little slide here is my slide to encourage you not to over nitrify a system when using fertility in general. And James talked about the home lawns producing a lot of nice top growth, but with the low end loading rate of the bloom material, the lower the nitrate parts per million in the soil, the better off your root system is going to be. And, you know, slow and steady wins the race. And if we can consider integrating bloom into our process as a journey, not an event, we can get the slow residual feed. Like if you put the bloom out today, you're going to get 60%-ish of the nutritional release in the next 12 months. And you're going to have another 20 to 30 in year 2. And you might have 5 to 10 in year 3. It's a process. So once you get an appropriate amount of bloom applied, you know, you're going to have this residual ball. And then the turf grass is going to become pretty darn self-sufficient. And it will reduce your input needs and still provide you that high quality turf grass that you're looking for. So my statement is more is not always better, but in the case of bloom, you know, once you get the right quantities, you'll be able to just mediate and monitor, and I think you'll be satisfied with the results. So if you have any questions, shoot them in the chat. I'll be able to try to answer them. But you know, I think the uses for bloom are still being discovered, but the things that I've seen in our usage to date has been very positive. And I really appreciate the opportunity to work with everyone at DC Water. It's been great, and look forward to continued success.
Super. Thank you, Jeff.
All righty. Okay, click to exit. Click to exit, and I'm back. All good?
All good. Over to you, Jeff. I'm sorry, Ben.
Oh, Lord, I wasn't sure if we want to answer Jeff's questions today or right this second, or if we wanted to wait till the very
end. We could go through everyone's presentation and then have the Q&A at the end.
Yeah. So
make sure we've got enough time for all of your good material.
Can everybody see this?
Yep, looks good.
Everybody looking good? So we're looking at it from a practical standpoint of how Bloom's going to work for us. And that's where I was very cautious of, everybody talks about Bloom, or you got Orgro, or you got Milorganite that's been, the standard since the 60s. So, hey, let's try this. I had a budget that allowed me to play around with stuff. So I used Bloom and said, let's go for it. Let's see what we can do. Let's present this. If you look right here, the soil was 2 fairways got constructed at Fort Belvoir Golf Club. They were eliminated of topsoil to save $500,000. That was their whole goal. Was the Army came in and said, "Hey, how are we going to save money? Let's save $500,000, eliminate all the topsoil." Well, that's kind of a problem. You look at this. This is literally the rock, the soil, the bare minimum of everything that we could possibly want to grow turf. This is not what we want. So what we had to do, we had to come in. We took a vibratory air fire, ran that sucker over the fairways, over the rough 100,000 times. And I understand not everybody has this tool. Okay. So what we also did in a small trial area, and unfortunately I don't have the pictures of it, we took a sand machine, typical John Deere Sand Pro. We put down the rakes, the bunker rakes, and we scarred up the surface, just trying to, our whole entire goal was trying to open the soil surface up in any way possible. Now, these pictures were taken in March, and we came in and just started punching holes and punching holes and punching holes. And a lot of people own air fires. This golf course that I was working at the time owned about 50 different types of air fires. The course I'm at currently owns 0 air fires. So we contract everything out. So for us, the sand machine bunker rate process would be the way to go. For this golf course, a vibratory air fire would be the way to go. We came in and brought in Bloom soil, or Bloom. We had the opportunity to bring in pretty much whatever we wanted. I went with Bloom. They have a sandy blend, and I felt that worked fantastic for the fairways. We're talking about fairway turf mode at a 1/2 inch. So I didn't want anything huge. I didn't want anything clumpy. I just wanted something to give nutrients to the golf course. We were built on solid rock. There was nothing growing. There was nothing available. So that's what we did. We brought in a sandy blend, and we were very proud of it. This is the way that we broadcasted our spreader. We broadcasted and dumped Bloom out every inch that we could on the fairways. I don't have an exact pounds per square inch or anything. I got to tell you, from a turf professional view, I opened up the spreader and dumped it out. We had soil tests done by actually Jeff Michael. that these fairways had no phosphorus, no organic material whatsoever. They were the driest of the dry. So that's why we were able to come in and just dump a product out. And we loved it. I turned the fairways pretty much almost black. That was great. We come in, what we did, we took a plastic drag mat. By Parade, you can come in and buy a Parade, or you can buy a metal drag mat for sports turf. We drug it in. If you look right here, this is what the fairways looked like before we did anything. It's bare. There's no nutrition. They're starving. So what we had to do was, after we dumped bloom on there, we came in, we fertilized, we came in and we watered the living crap out of it. We sent that water up to hopefully get nutrients down in the soil and hopefully to amend it as best that we possibly could. The rough was not treated as well because we couldn't afford to, but we could afford to treat the fairway. That was our whole goal, was let's treat the fairway. Greens, tees, and fairways. Those are our goals. You talk about what these are going to do. This is the results that we had from March till August. We did one hell of a turnaround. These are the same golf holes that you saw. This right here became this from March until August. And we had the availability to do that. And I don't know what else to say. This is what we did. This is how we operated. It made me look really good. It really did. It made me look good. So I looked at, so my bosses think that I'm a genius. Like, oh yeah. I just. No, it's the products that I chose, the way we did it. Let's make it happen. And that's how we operated. Now, around the bunkers and stuff like that, around the bunkers, we actually did by hand.
Hey, Ben, it looks like you got muted there. Ben, if you can hear me. We got you muted there.
Apparently I did get muted. I have no idea why.
It was that was just for the last your last little comment there.
Oh Lord. I'll do a really super duper, I'll blow through this here. Yeah, but these were the results that we got out of bloom for March through August 1st. You know, if this is what you want, fantastic. But this is a practical standpoint. And this is the response that we gave. So if you have any
That's
questions,
amazing.
yeah, I mean, this is we had the opportunity to try other products, and we did. We did try out other products that were not showing because they never gave us the results. Simple as that. So that's what we're here for. This made me look good. I looked like I was a hero for our membership and all that. Like, they're like, oh yeah, you're great. You know, going from this to this in months was just unreal. So that's the practical standpoint. That's for, we're actually at Andrews Air Force Base currently, and I'll leave you with this. We've worked with Jeff Michael on some stuff that we're actually doing some nursery greens. We're doing some practice greens that are actually going to be with Bloom to do exactly what he recommended, to blend with the 90-10 mix, and, you know, really blend these products together. And that's what we're going to do, is do that, and we'll keep track of it. We'll start showing pictures and share pictures along the way. So
Yeah, it's going to be Ben's part guinea pig, but you know, what we do is a lot of times study nature, not books, and we'll go through a laboratory process where we'll take the products, you know, the Bloom Fresh and the sand, correct sand, and we'll blend it at a 98.2 and a 97.3. Then we'll run a nutritional analysis. Then we'll run what's called a saturated hydraulic curve. So we'll understand what the moisture principles are on it. So, you know, in the lab, it's pretty easy to take sand by volume and Bloom Fresh by volume and stir it up and homogenize it. Now, when you're building 100 tons of that material or 200 tons of that material to build a large putting green, we have to work out the logistics of using the Bloom cake to blend into the sand, because it's just a little clumpy and sticky. But we'll figure out a process to do that where, you know, we can utilize maybe some on-site blending / mixing tools to get us homogenized. That's the key in creating a media for golf turf and putting greens and tees, is to get a homogenized media. We'll work through those issues. They're not insurmountable. You have to be patient. So we'll figure them out. And then, you know, I wrote in the comments, you know, when I originally did it, we used the cured, because obviously dry flowable is better than, you know, something that's tacky. It's easier to mix a dry flowable into a sand than it is tack. If we can work out logistic issue with getting the Bloom cured more readily available, then we'll use that. There won't be a substantive change, you know, because we're doing a thing by volume, and I can calculate moisture. So, you know, I can modify the volume input based on the data or just through math. But it's going to work because it's sand. It's a quality organic source. It's just baking the cake. So we'll get it. And I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate Ben jumping in and helping. And I can tell you, I was at that Fort Belvoir. That's not really what he was trying to grow grass on, was not topsoil. It's called overburden. They're just not blessed. You know, and when they did the construction, like I said, everything that was worth anything got pushed away. And all they were left with was the subsoil, which was churty, rocky, integrated with some marine clays. And it was not a pleasant sight. So it needed,
I think that's an understatement.
Yeah, it needed the biology enhancement from the organics And, they saved $500,000 by not putting topsoil out. And we try to convince them to spend some money just to coat it with some bloom pre-plant. But, things evolve slowly when you're working with the federal government at times, or the DOD or whatever. And, they had a timeline, the contractor had to go. So we try to, it's like the police. I get called after the crime's been committed, and we could have did a lot of work on the front end and avoided it. But, that's my job. I got to do a better job at convincing the decision makers how to avoid problems, not fix them.
Well, thank you. Thank you both. And thanks, James,
Okay.
so much for sharing these great experiences. I do want to quickly cover some of the questions. And I know you guys have already been responding to a few of these in the chat. So I'm just going to take a few, starting with those that haven't been responded to. Ryan Lemley was asking you, Jeff, if you could compare the woody mix to a top dressing to other commercially available products, both performance and cost-wise.
Yeah, I think I might have typed that in the wrong space. The only other one that I'm currently familiar being used is we're using some McGill fines out of Richmond, and it's a woody blend, aerobically digested sludge product coming out of the South. It appears to work very well also. Cost-wise, that's not my ballywhack. I can't really help you there. But I've seen that top dressed into some of what I'll call these post-construction trauma areas. And the key to getting a good woody blend, and when you put it in, it's got to have something to integrate into, like a turf canopy, some little bit, or you got to seed it and get it up and grown. Because if you get a frog choking rain, if the wood is too big, it floats like kayaks. It'll move on you, and then you got to put it back in place or something like that. So, having the wood chips be fine enough to integrate when you're top dressing into existing turf is a good thing. You don't want 1.5 inch long pencil tips. You know what I'm saying? So, Bloom appears to do a pretty good job of keeping their fines fine. And then when you blend the sandy material in with the wood and the Bloom, you get probably a slightly better top dressing product into existing turf. Works pretty well. You can use it in potted plants. So, I mean, you just got to look at the product, touchy-feely sometimes, but when I've seen it, it's all been good stuff. So,
yeah. I want to move on to a question that's for James, from Matthew Bird. PFAS test results from Bloom.
Oh, yeah. I also saw he was asking about the production process, so I'll just answer both. Yeah, so we tested for perfluorinated compounds. If anyone doesn't know what PFAS is, it's basically a long chain of carbons with a couple of fluorides at the end. It's very stable, persistent in the environment. Yeah, so again, like I mentioned earlier, we have very little industry, so most of what we're getting is from residences. So it's essentially what people are using in their houses, it's in their bodies, it's in the clothes they're using, and so we do get a portion of that, but we're definitely on sort of the lower end for biosolids and indicative of just residual environmental exposure. And so yeah, we're in the kind of lower parts per billion there, range from 40 to 100 parts per billion total PFAS, and a lot of that is in the solid phase. So the leachability is potentially very, very low. And so that's what would be your concern with runoff into water sources, that kind of thing. So again, our understanding is it's fairly low risk. Obviously, the EPA is doing a full health risk assessment and fate and transport study on PFAS, and so we're kind of awaiting those results. But our sense from our sense from what state regulators are doing and the federal regulators are doing is they're really trying to isolate those industrial sources. You see that with the Michigan program where they had a lot of car finishing plants, and you're trying to get upstream treatment so it doesn't actually reach the wastewater treatment plant. But dealing with that diffuse low-level exposure from residences, that's more of a target for source control. So actually eliminating those product uses altogether. So if we don't get those products out of our houses, our exposure isn't going to be reduced. So targeting the biosolid in that case isn't really an optimal solution. So that's PFAS and our understanding at present. From a production standpoint, sorry I didn't go into this in more depth. I was just trying to leave a little more time for our presenters, but essentially I included a control diagram there. But basically, how a wastewater plant works is you've got primary and secondary treatment, and which is a physical separation and biological separation, and from that you get a sludge, which is organic in nature and has a lot of nutrients in there. We collect that, so we screen it, we take out the water. We try to get as much inorganic material out of it as possible through screening. And once we've done that and cleaned it as much as possible, we'll then run it through the THP system, which, like I mentioned, we're taking that material up to 100 degrees C, 150 PSI, like a pressure cooker. Cooking it for 30 minutes, you get complete sterilization, so eliminating any pathogens. And then by pressurizing it, when you release that out into the flash tank, you go from high pressure to low pressure. You get what's called cell lysis, so it really breaks up that material. It makes it a lot easier for the next step, which is the anaerobic digester. And so digestion works through methanogens that break down the organic matter, the volatile organic matter like VFAs. And so you break those down, turn them into methane, which we use at our power plant, and you get a nice homogeneous and stabilized organic source. And one of the really nice side benefits of this process and through some of our other upstream treatment processes is that we end up with a very low odor material. That's one of the major challenges with biosolids is dealing with high odors, but because we sterilize it and we do a nice stabilization and there's some addition of iron, you get a very low odor profile. Obviously, I work in this industry, so my low odor isn't necessarily the case for other folks. I've been around a lot of sludge works, and this is by far the best smelling I've ever seen. You do get a strong hint of ammonia, but then when we mix it with those blends, those organic sources like mulch fines or sand, you get a really nice suppression of the odor further. And Jeff was saying he doesn't smell an odor. April likes to say there's still a bit of an odor. It gets a little bit earthy, and when you spread it out there, there's going to be a little bit there, but very minimal, not something that's going to sort of spread very far to your neighbors. And that enables us to market it and sell it in a lot of contexts. So hopefully that answers your question there.
Thanks, James. There's a question from Aquia Harbor. What is the rate? Oops, it just disappeared when something new came in through. What is the rate of bloom to M? I'm not sure what M is, and what additional inorganic fertilizer is needed for putting greens in a typical season?
Okay. Okay. Bloom per 1,000 square feet is what.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Okay. You know, I'm going to be real honest with you. It depends on circumstance and budget. You know, I would dress the bloom in a fairway rough situation. You know, maybe not as aggressive as Ben did because he had a bigger problem to solve. But if you have a maintenance issue, you know, if you spread anywhere from 500 to 2,000 pounds of bloom per acre on a Bermuda grass, common Bermuda fairway like at Aquia Harbor, I think you'll be in pretty good shape. I would not use it on putting surfaces because it's too coarse. You know, the woodies, that's just not a mix for putting surfaces. So you're better off using a more conventional fertility mindset or a soluble fertility mindset. But roughs, you know, common and improved variety Bermudas, green surrounds, especially bunker faces where, you know, sometimes you have challenges in growing turf because you're blasting raw sand onto native soil. And that combination is super challenging. If you can even feed the chickens, as we say, with a, you know, some of the bloom woody and get it raked into that face of that bunker and try to help create some nutrient holding capacity, water holding capacity in that high sand content area, works out well. But it's, you know, what can you afford to do in a lot of cases? I wouldn't go more than a half an inch because, again, I worry about floating on slopes and movement. You know, you got a raw bunker face and you dress too much bloom, you get a big rain, it's going to be in your bunk. It's going to be in your sand trap if you don't sod it. And the seed didn't have adequate time to develop. But you can make quote unquote repair mixes with bloom. You can take bloom, whether it's sandy or woody, you could integrate seed with it and you can shovel out and fix spots. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility. Yeah, there's things we haven't even thought about yet, you know. And hey, man, I've taken bloom cured. I grow some wicked ass tomatoes. Some people might be reluctant because they know where it comes from, you know, and but I've used it for some enhanced fertility in my garden. It works just fine, and the vegetables are fine. You know, I have no issue. I mean, it's just an organic source from humans. Once we're over that psychological, um, nature realizes it as carbon and nutrition. That's it. That's the list.
Let me just jump in here real quick. Sorry, April. Sorry, Jen.
No, go for it.
We tried also at Andrews Air Force Base and Fort Belvoir Golf Course. We've tried some of the bagged products out there. Yes, bloom is sold in bags, which is fantastic for small areas. The difference that we had is that bloom was able to be sold in bulk. And that's something that we took into account. And I think that was something that we made us a difference, is that it's sold in bulk. We could put it out in bulk as opposed to just getting pallets of a product. And that is something that we determined of why we chose bloom in the first place. So I didn't want to throw that out.
Thank you. Well, I think we are at time here. We got through all of our questions right on time. I want to thank all of you for joining and thank our presenters. As I said at the beginning, we will send you a link to the recording. And for those of you who are, you know, curious about trying bloom or learning more, we're happy to set you up with a sample. We're happy to have you on a tour. We love to bring people to check out the product and the process firsthand. So feel free to reach out. And yeah, we look forward to hearing from some of you. And if you've got any problem areas turf wise, we'd love to hear from you and see how we can help. Otherwise, I wish you all a good rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
April.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Take care,
Thank you all.
everyone.